Can you imagine running non-stop for 100 miles and doing that in 24 hours? Well, I'm going to be talking to Patrick Farnan today, who joined me on a Sane Challenge to do that. We're going to talk about low points, high points, what it taught us. And just by listening to this podcast or watching this video, it might inspire you to push past some self-limiting beliefs. Patrick here, he did this challenge 100 miles and he absolutely smashed mine out of the park. I thought I did well, but this guy did 168 kilometers. Patrick, just tell us, what was maybe the lowest point during that 24-hour period that you think others can now learn from?
The lowest point has got to be when you feel like there's no one around you, when everyone's left the track. I was doing a 24-hour race and mine was surrounded by other competitors, and the 12-hour runners left. The lights dimmed down and it felt pretty lonely, pretty distraught almost, because I've been using and working with other people for the last 3 hours to just keep moving forward and keep getting myself out of another low patch. And so you're just over halfway and you thought the 12 hours had just been was so long, but there's still another 12 hours to go.
So you had this sort of little cohort of people that were running with you and then they left after 12 hours?
Yeah. So it was a full 24-hour event around an athletics track. And so there was about another 30 people running 24 hours at the same time. And in my lane, there was a whole bunch of 12-hour runners that left because there were so many 24-hour runners. And so you almost felt empty, like the place just deserted you. Like you were amongst other people, but you just still felt like you'd lost something that was helping drive you forward.
Okay, so just
that was a hard thing.
By the time you've been running for 12 hours around a 400-meter athletics track, how far had you already done?
I was coming up to 100 Ks.
So that's double marathon already, and you're only halfway through the challenge, and then all these guys just suddenly say, yeah, see you later, Patrick. How did you pick yourself out of that low point?
It's a hard thing to do, but the biggest thing is like the people that you have around you. I had a crew there, and it comes down to the quality of the questions that you ask. The quality of questions that you ask the people around you to get the right answer. And I asked Nikki and Scott, who had been in that position before. They'd been in 24-hour, 200-mile races. And I go, I'm in pain, I'm sore. What do you do? And they're just like, it's all on you. You just got to suck it up. You got to believe that the pain isn't there because it's all in your head. And then that's sort of coming up to the next big phase of the journey. What about yourself, Chris? Because, I mean, 100 miles is a long way, but I remember 100 kilometers and you did 128. Still a long way. It's a monumental effort coming off doing not really a whole lot of running leading up to it, to be honest. It's almost probably more mind-blowing to me that you're able to do something like that without actually really putting in the training in. It's almost bigger of a mindset hurdle. How did you find the lowest point of the 24 hours?
Well, mine was about 3 o'clock in the morning, and in the UK it was -1 on the day that I did my challenge, and I just had a really lovely, well, I say lovely, it was a 2-hour run with one of my best mates, Jim. And then he left and obviously went back to bed, and it was about 3 o'clock in the morning, and I was regularly going back in the house, and I saw the embers of the wood burning stove just kind of glowing, and I knew my partner Julie was upstairs asleep, and the house was really cozy, and the temptation just to think, nobody's going to find out. Nobody knows that I'm not going to carry on running for the next hour and a half until Scott comes down at 4:30. And that point was, to me, was both low, but also looking backwards now, it was hugely inspiring to say, never mind all that stuff, turn around and get out there. Because at the same time, there was my accountability buddy doing the same thing in Australia, which was you. I knew you were doing your track. And I thought, do you know, I cannot possibly face sending a message to Patrick and saying, yeah, mate, I did 5 hours, but I decided enough was enough because I just couldn't be bothered. I didn't want to let you down. And that's something else that I've learned, is that the more you can pay out your desire for success to other people, they'll actually pull you along, even at your lowest point. You don't want to have to say to them, I'm sorry, I let you down. And knowing that you were flying around your track at 400 meters every time was a really big pull for me to carry on going. So it was a low point, and I guess it was now it's a high point for me at the same time. How is your low point serving you since you hit that rock bottom moment that's sort of 12 hours in now?
It was probably one of the best experiences. It was the worst experience you could have, because that was like a defining point in the race in the 24 hours, because you could pull out at 24 hours, like you're saying, like there's every opportunity. There's a chair there, there's food there to just cruise. And so you sort of I got into a bit of a flow state. That was kind of the thing, is that the best part about ultras is that you've always just got to wait and trust that things will start turning. No matter how low it gets, you got to trust, like have some like belief in some other world almost, that something's going to change. And so I just put my headphones in, put the hoodie on, and just started churning out, and just tried to get into a bit of a rhythm, and just try to keep that the smallest possible goal at that point in time, which is the next hour, of like achievable, and just build yourself up, give yourself a bit of small wins. And so that turned into the highest point of the race for me, was that the time that I guess most people kind of quit. And like you were saying, the 3 hour mark in the morning is like the hardest point for most people. It was actually like my strength point, from about 1 o'clock in the morning to about 7 o'clock in the morning. That was where I found the most power. It was like my power 6 hours. And so that was probably the lesson that it taught me, was that you can ride the lows and come up through the highs, and knowing that you're on the other side of the world as well, being like the obligation to actually have to tell someone that you want to quit and that you don't want to do it anymore. It's powerful.
Yeah.
And so I completely resonate with that.
Yeah.
And so what was the learning lesson from you from that point that inspired you to keep going?
Well, it happened about half an hour later. I kind of put my headphones in and put some dance tracks on, and then I decided to change my route a little bit and went up to a farmhouse, which is about half a mile outside the village. And it was such a clear night. And I just stopped for a minute, took my headphones out, and just looked up. And I just felt so uniquely happy. It was 4 o'clock in the morning. Dawn was just beginning to break. The stars were so clear and the night was so crisp. And I just kind of stood there and thought, there are so few people that will experience this moment, this high now. And then I just thought, do you know what? Dawn's coming, Scott's going to come down, and I can just see chunk after chunk after chunk that were moments of complete elation and joy. And the pain and the hurt and the blisters, they were kind of such a supplementary small thing compared to the points that I could see coming up. I felt as if I got through my hurdles, and the rest of it, I wasn't going to be easy. There's no doubt about it. But that was 4 o'clock in the morning, standing there watching the stars was a complete moment of uniqueness that I really, really look back on now with so much strength. Yeah. So what
That's
about
powerful.
Thinking about your own sort of clients now, Patrick? How can you reflect this experience of running 24 hours, 100 miles, 168 kilometers non-stop. How is that enabling you to serve your clients even more effectively now on crushing their goals?
I think it comes down to the mindset. Like, how many people are crazy enough to go out for 24 hours and see what they're capable of, to be the person in the arena and trust in their own systems that they'll be able to keep going and that they'll be able to, get to their goals. It's something that a lot of people don't practice inherently in themselves. And so to be able to go out there and show that, and to do it with other people and know what motivates and what inspires other people was great. Yeah. Because I guess when you're out, in my case, there was lots of people out on the track. So you have all these different people doing the 24 hours for different reasons. And you have a bit of a chat, you have a bit of an understanding of why they're here. And everyone comes to these sorts of things. Everyone's got this place in the world of, what motivates you to come out and do what you want to do. And so that's a powerful thing, because you're not only in there with yourself and trying to figure out how you're going to make the next hour or 2 hours, but you're talking and understanding other people and what mindsets and shifts they're going through, and how to motivate other people to keep going and keep inspiring. And that was kind of one of the really strange things, and one of the differences between, I guess, what I was going through and what you were going through was, I was going through it like a shared experience with other people that were going through just as much pain as I was. Whereas you had a very different experience, didn't you, Chris, in terms of the people that you were running with?
Yeah, well, I kind of it was a solitary challenge, but the great thing about humanity for the day was that a number of surprising things happened that I had no idea was going to play out the way it did. My sister was 3.5 hours away, and she rang me and said, "How are you doing? Where are you?" And I'm like, "I'm by the church, what does it matter?" And she said, "Oh, which way are you going?" And I'm kind of like, "Well, I'm going to go to the church, turn left, and then I'll come up the hill." And then as I turned the corner, she was there with her husband, and I just cried. I'm going to cry now, because it was this sort of moment when, oh my gosh, my sister has driven for 3.5 hours in lockdown just to be with her brother. And then so many other points of humanity. People came down for the local running group and just said, "Oh, where's the bloke that's running? Oh, it's you. You must be because you look so disheveled. There could only be one person that's running around the village. I'll just do a lap with you." And for me, humanity just delivered so much. And what it's probably teaching both of us is that when you ask for help, it comes in torrents. And sometimes we just stay playing too small because we think that people can't help us. And yet, when you ask the question, it comes, people deliver. And, working with you as a coach now, Patrick, they're not going to say, "Well, what do you know?" You can say, "Well, hey, I've been running for 100 miles, 24 hours. Don't tell me about the fact that you can't, or you're not good enough, or why should I?" Because they're going to look at you in the mirror and go, yeah. Okay. You've done your 100 miles. It's something they cannot question. So I think you've set the bar really high. And as a result of that, how can they fail not to be inspired and impressed by the amount of effort and commitment that you've shown in your own personal endeavors?
There's definitely something within the seeking of discomfort and the uncomfortable experiences, because of the way, I guess, life throws at you. Like you mentioned, COVID, it's almost a distant memory for me in Melbourne at the moment. But I remember when it first hit, like the unexpectedness of something like that is hard to comprehend when you haven't been through experiences like this, that like put you in the arena and help you to cope with stuff and cope with unexpected circumstances. And that's probably one of the best aspects of doing something like this, is you get used to the uncomfortable and the things that pop up, and the randomness of it all that you were experiencing. And what from this experience have you gained that's something that you can take back to your clients to help them go to the next level, to help your clients to grow even more that you've done?
I guess it's the importance of chunking the size of the task down, in that sometimes we see the size of the opportunity or the size of the challenge, and it becomes so intimidating you just don't start because you think, I don't know where to start. And looking backwards now, I didn't realize how much I'd done it, but I chunked every single little part of the challenge down to moments that I thought, I just need to get to that point. I just need to get to that point when Scott's coming. I just need to show up when Mark's coming down, and doing that. And also, my first 12 hours, I got my nutrition and my food really badly wrong. And I knew within the first hour that I was sloshing around like a car with a bunch of petrol in its tank. And it was not a comfortable experience, and then had some serious repercussions. So that changes for me now is that even though things come along that you don't expect, it doesn't mean that you need to stop trying. It just means you need to find another level to get to in order to get past the hurdle that is now in front of you. So that's what's changed for me, is just having the ability to chunk, get past that initial hurdle, and then keep going thereafter. What about you, Patrick? What's changed for you as a result of this massive challenge?
I think it's something very similar, like presence, being present to the moment. Because there was a book that inspired me to do the 24-hour challenge. It was The Rise of the Ultra Runners by Darian Finn. Excuse me if I got the name wrong. But I was so glad that I listened to that chapter of the book just before I started it. And he talked about the idea of just being present to the moment, to almost surrender to what's currently happening, because you can't control anything that's past, and you can't control anything that's going on in the future. And so that was almost where the highest point of the race was being able to just surrender to that point in time and being like, I'm just going to run here. I'm just going to keep running, and I'm going to see what happens. Because, if you try and hold something back or try and give too much, you lose track of what you are, as opposed to just trying to get into the flow state, or just get into the next hour, into the next lap. I think that's probably the biggest thing, is that perspective of, being present. You've got 24 hours. It's such a long time. Like, I don't know about you, Chris, but it felt like a very long 24 hours the longest 24 hours I've ever experienced. And so,
but looking back now, I bet it went like an instant, didn't it? In terms of, it felt such a long time, but looking backwards now, it's all paled into significance now in terms of that 24 hours.
Yeah, correct. It's just sort of disappeared. And that's almost like the essence of being present. The more present you are at the time, the more you can remember the experience and what's going on. And so for you, what's changed? Because there's got to be something that's shifted within you after being out there for 24 hours. In the freezing cold, mind you, I was running around in a t-shirt and shorts for most of it. But at -1, that's very, very chilly.
For me, I believe I'm a runner now, actually. For a long time, I felt as though running wasn't one of my key strengths, because we both do a lot of triathlon events. And running for me was always the last part of the challenge, and always the one that I least looked forward to. And when you said, should we do this challenge, I kind of leaned in and went, commitment creates certainty. And I said, okay, fine. And then the Saturday afterwards, I said, I'm going to try to run a marathon today. And I ran the marathon. Okay, it took me quite a while and it hurt. But from that moment on that day, when I said, can I? And I stepped up and did 42K. I then changed my whole mindset to say, I'm not just a runner, but I can be an ultra marathon runner. And the change now that just says what you think you attract, what you feel you can become. And just by changing that internal mechanism that says no to yes, that's a big part of my epiphany, is that you're only as good as your last thought. And the last thought will then create the next piece of momentum. Stop telling yourself you can't and tell yourself you can.
That's an amazing change. Like, it's almost like that change in identity of who you really truly are. And like, and what you can become. Because that shift of not being a runner to being a runner, it didn't really take anything at the end of the day, like 42 kilometers, but it was just that thought, like you mentioned, that the changed for you in terms of who you were and what you could become. And you
I
became
don't want to
something
take
way
anything away
more.
from your own part to play in this, Patrick. You're obviously working with people that want to crush their goals, and you asked me a question and you put the challenge on my back to say, well, what's stopping you? And do you want to join me? So yeah, okay, it was part of my own personal story, but let's remember also for your clients and my clients, there was somebody else that was asking me the questions that enabled me to then push through and do my own 24-hour challenge. So it's not all about individualism. It's also about accountability and have somebody else who's got your back.
For sure. It's a massive thing to know that there's someone else out there that's relying on you, that can help to inspire and motivate you to get to the goals and get to the things, that the achievements that you really want.
Yeah.
To be able to set goals and go out and reach them.
Yeah.
Because they're reachable. If you can think them, they're achievable. And it's a matter of almost forgetting that the past self that didn't think that outcome was possible. Like, there was a time in my life where I thought 100 miles was crazy and like absurd. But as soon as you realize and understand that that goal becomes a reality, then everything shifts and everything changes.
Yeah.
Was there something that you found and that you inspired within the other people that you were doing within your little community, the people that came and ran with you? What takeaways did they have of coming by and saying hello?
They just found it, some of them found it a hugely rewarding experience. And at one point, one person turned up and he was walking slower than I wanted. And I was getting myself frustrated on the basis that I've just gone, I've gone lower than my 18-kilometer walk pace. And then I had this kind of, for goodness sake, wake up, smack yourself in the face. This person's traveled all the way down on a Saturday just to walk around this bloody village with you, to support you. And that was the moment I kind of really had to pinch myself to say, get this into perspective and make this a good experience for them as it was for me. And that's my second half of my challenge, was all about making the experience as good for the people that were supporting me as it was for myself. So yeah, that was a big change. Patrick, we're going to wrap up in a minute, but tell me about where this goes next. And there's a post that you did actually on social, which was about what happens when you hit the goal and then the low comes afterwards. Tell me about that post that you did around how you pick yourself up from this point of elation to then the fall that then follows when you hit that goal. How can you help people get past that point of low?
You've almost got to have in the back of your mind that this goal is just part of the journey, and that this is a massive goal, what you're trying to do, but there's a bigger part to play afterwards. So almost having another goal pre-planned ahead of you to go, that's the thing I'm working towards next. Because what happens is once you reach your goals, you reach such a high of emotion. And at this moment in time that it would almost be nearly impossible to maintain that level of excitement and energy. So there is going to be a dip, but it's like that expected of going, yeah, celebrate the challenge, the goal that you achieved, and embrace it. And so that you absorb everything from the challenge, because it wasn't just the challenge, it was everything before it that got you to that goal, the growth that you achieved to that point. And so you got to set the next challenge and the next goal ahead of what you want to try to achieve. And where's your next point of growth is probably a great way to look at it.
Yeah. So what is that next challenge for you then, Patrick?
So the next challenge for me came from the 24-hour challenge, and it's a last man standing event, and that's in a month.
No. Those are brutal, man. That.
It's absurd, but it's almost that ability to understand and cope with the uncertainty of it, because there is so much uncertainty of how long you're going to go for, what the body's going to do, what other people are going to do. And I guess it's almost that the goal that I've been looking for a while, that it was just the right time, right place. And it was almost like hard to refuse. Like, as challenging as that going to be, but sometimes things happen for a reason. Sometimes you get given challenges that you're able to handle, because or else the challenge wouldn't have been given to you. You've got to go out there and try to achieve something more. And I'm not really sure what's going to happen with this one, but it's going to take a lot of learning lessons for what I've learnt in the 24-hour race, and almost put on steroids, to be honest. It's going to be crazy.
All right. Well,
What
I
about yourself?
can't wait to see how that pans out for you. So I guess on your Facebook group, you'll be talking about that particular challenge and some of the journeys that you're taking. What's your Facebook group for people to learn about that and everything else that you're giving back to your community?
So it's an elite performance mindset. A lot of the stuff I post within that group gives extra tips and extra strategies, and how movement and how different hints and tips can help to perform at a high level and to be able to get toward your goals, to get the growth that you're looking for. Because there's always something missing to go and keep trying to achieve and try and do something more. And so how do you do that, and how do you keep feeling good about that process? So that's the kind of place, or just on the standard socials. So it's going to be an exciting challenge.
Well, good luck with that one. I think I saw the
You
record.
wouldn't want to join me, would you, Chris?
No. Don't do that to me again. No, my partner, Julie, she'd never forgive me. I did say, I think the next 90 days, I need to crush my business goals and slightly do less on the running challenges and more around putting some revenue in the pipe. So yeah, that's the next 90 days for me. Great.
And so what within that, what have you got coming up? What's the next thing that you want to put out there to help others, I guess, from what you've learned through this challenge? Where would you like to grow?
All right. Well, I guess I'll talk about a long-term vision, is that I want to help enough people that then allows me to create a place in wilderness where disadvantaged young adults can come to try to push themselves, to better themselves, and enable them to be the best person that they can be. So for me, it's about finding enough clients and enough people that want to come and work with me, so that then I can give back to some young people that are on the start of the journey and push themselves. So that's experiencing nature, going into a challenge, immersing themselves in dark, cold water, whatever it might be, but being at one with nature and being enabled by some inspiring coaches and leadership people that push them to go beyond places where they ever thought possible. So it's a long-term vision. So currently my coaching framework is enabling me to hopefully get to that point, so that I can then give back to humanity in the world. That's my plan.
That's awesome. That sounds like an amazing goal, well above, I guess, the essence of just doing these running events. It's something more to inspire others and to help others achieve something greater, which I think is almost the intent of doing these things in the first place, to show other people that you can go and do these experiences and do things to grow and put yourself out of those comfort zones. And so that's quite a powerful vision to see that and to help others in the process.
Yeah. Well, if you don't do something about your vision, then you just kind of bumble on from one day to the next. And looking at some of your challenges and some of your content, I know that you're going to be serving and helping an awful lot of people to smash and achieve their goals. This guy is no, here he is, over there he is. He really inspired me to go to another level of performance and challenging my own mindset. So fair play. Go and have a chat with him. See how he can help you achieve and crush your goals. And if you feel the same from my perspective, then, Mindset for Business, it's a really empowering challenge group on Facebook. And hopefully we can see each other soon. Patrick, you must tell us about the Last Man Standing. And I've got a big thing about the fact that you might just be one of the last. Yeah,
it's going to be an interesting challenge. It's effectively a 6.7K loop every hour on the hour until everyone else gives up. And so that's kind of the interesting part of it. It ends up being 100 miles every 24 hours, and it could go on for days, who knows, weeks. It's kind of something that when you look at it on face value, it doesn't seem that hard for like the average runner or someone that's quite active, but it almost shows that things compound over time, and it's about how you handle each challenge, how you handle each unexpected event to be able to keep going and keep moving forward, and how you handle that with mindset, because it's not super fast. It just becomes a war of attrition, and the endurance to just keep battling on. So it'll be a great challenge to see what comes of it.
It's the most ridiculously insane bleep test that I've ever imagined. You have to get 6.7 kilometers into the journey every hour to enable you to then continue the challenge. Well,
it is a beep test on steroids. It is a crazy level beep test.
Yeah. All right. Well, please be the last man standing, but also please be the next person standing the next day to make sure that you can come back and share the journey and experience with us. It's been a pleasure, Patrick. Thank you for inspiring me to now say I am an ultra marathon runner.
Awesome. It's an amazing achievement.
All right. And you too, mate. We'll see you soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you.